Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news. This is the business of sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with my colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo. Scarlet Fu would join us later in the show. Coming up, March Madness rolls on. We get the latest research from our friends at Bloomberg Intelligence about the value the NCAA Tournament is providing the networks carrying it. Plus, we check in with an old friend of the show, ImpactX Sports Group Chairman and CEO Xavier Gutierrez, for his thoughts on some of the latest headlines in sports investing and private equity's growth in sports.
There are limitations when you invest in a team in terms of the percentage of ownership, the structure, the debt. When you're looking at these opportunities for the holdco, not the team co, a lot more flexibility, a lot more exit opportunities, a lot more structuring. And so I believe that private equity is looking at that opportunity and that valuation increase. And I think we're barely at the first inning.
All that is straight ahead on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, baseball is officially back. This weekend is the first full weekend of baseball. And here now to talk about all the big storylines heading into the year is MLB Network's lead studio analyst, Harold Reynolds. First of all, congratulations on your new time slot, 5 p.m. for your new show.
There we go.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. This is like an annual, yearly thing. I love it. But the new studio time, 5 o'clock, Greg Amsinger, Dan Plesac, myself, the uniqueness of it is we're usually on late at night, and we're reacting in and out of games with live look-ins, and that's the bulk of that show at late night. This year, from 5 to 7, we'll be able to have a lot more scripted stuff because there won't be a lot of games going at that time. So we're excited to have people know exactly where we are and when we are every day, when we'll be on, and we can craft a lot of things directly to the sport. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, Harold, you were just in Tokyo, and I guess I have to ask the elephant in the room, the question here. Will the Los Angeles Dodgers go 162-0 this season? I mean, listen to me. The record of 116 regular season wins, I think, the 1906 Cubs, the 2001 Mariners, you got to believe that, there's a real chance here that they can break that, no?
There's a real chance they can pass that number, no doubt. And 162, well, if they play every other week, yeah, they can do that. It's like a high school schedule, right? But, no, I tell you what, when you said the word, let's talk about Japan, that statement, unbelievable. I hadn't been there since really 1988 when I went and played for the U.S. All-Star Series over there, and it was just spectacular. The fan engagement, Ohtani, obviously with Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Sasaki on the Dodgers, and then Imanaga with the Cubs, and just all the 5 Japanese players, so they were crazy about it in their country. But they love baseball. It was so fun. So fun. Last thing, and I'll let you guys get back at it. I'd never seen this. I saw it a little bit when Aaron Judge was chasing 62, what I'm getting ready to tell you. Yeah. But every time Shohei Ohtani came to the plate, he could step his toe out the dugout. They went crazy, okay? But as soon as he got in the batter's box and the pitcher got his sign, shook no, yes, okay, here's my pitch. As soon as he got ready to deliver, the place was dead silent, like 50,000 whispers. It was incredible. Everybody had their cameras, and they didn't say a word. And then he'd foul the ball off, and they go, "Ah!" It was incredible. If you're sitting at home watching on TV, you're hitting your clicker like, did the volume break? What's going on here? Crazy.
Yeah. Well, we got to talk about that, Harold. It's so interesting. Obviously, with Ohtani, obviously we know he's, the best show in the game. And it's really, we're seeing something we haven't seen before. And he's supposedly supposed to get back on the mound this year. What do you think about that? Should he really try and get back on the mound this year? I mean, won MVP without getting on the mound. Do we see it again? Do we stop giving him the MVP at some point, even though we know he could get it every single season?
Absolutely, he gets back on the mound. And if he wins the MVP every year, it's okay with me. I mean, look, we're coming across something you will never, ever see again. And I grew up on the West Coast. I grew up in Oregon. And when John Wooden had his teams coming through and they were winning those 88 straight and all that stuff, one of my brothers would say to me, you better recognize greatness when it's upon you. You'll never see it again.
The 0-1 is hit high and deep right field. If it's fair, it's gone, and that one is fair. And a home run, a towering home run into the second deck for Shohei Ohtani.
And I believe that. We will never see anybody like Ohtani again. Just recognize it and enjoy it.
Well, yeah, Harold, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, certainly, if you're Michael Barr and, you just got paid your bonus here at Bloomberg and you're firing up your FanDuel account, plus 275. I don't remember a team coming into the season at plus 275 to win the World Series. And that's where the Dodgers are today. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Yankees lost Garrett Cole, their ace, I think that kind of skewed the betting lines. Talk to us about some of the other teams, the Braves, the Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies, the Orioles. Are those the teams that have the next best shot of potentially getting a win against the Dodgers this season?
Well, what the Dodgers have done, they have such great pitching depth. So that's beyond all the Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Shohei and all that. Let's go to their pitching. But teams that can contend, I think the National League East is loaded. The Phillies are still a team that's going to be really good. The Braves are very young, and they continue to do things excellent. And then, obviously, the Mets have jumped in the fray. But I think the one thing that, as I look down the stretch, it's not how you start. It's who can add when they need it. And all those teams I just talked about can add because they have a minor league system or they have young players that they can trade, they can go do. Those are the things that I would look at. Who has the cachet that can go trade a player? Seattle has 6 pitchers. Yeah. They can go get a player if they need it. Not saying that that's the team to beat. I like the Rangers for that fact. There's a few teams I think that can, in a series, knock off anybody. That's the beauty of our sport. But the Dodgers are clearly loaded. I would not bet against them. But if there's a way to look at maybe another club stepping up, that would be it. And I think there's one pitcher out there, Sandy Alcantara with the Marlins. I've been saying it from all winter. When he threw his first pitch at 100 miles an hour, back healthy again in spring training the first game, every team gravitated to him. Yeah. And I think he's a division changer. He's a playoff pitcher, and he's a guy that could take you over the top. He's a guy that the Yankees can go get, and now you're back in the fold again. Those are the he's that kind of a pitcher. So I'd keep my eyes on him. And then I'd keep my eyes on the Dodgers and if anybody can add to beat them.
Well, we've talked about the best. Now we got to talk about the rest. And I'm going to compare it to I-80. There's a big sinkhole in New Jersey where I travel, and I got a detour. Oh, God. And the poor team that is in that sinkhole, the Chicago White Sox. What is it going to take to get that team at least put something on the board, fellas?
I don't think they're going to lose 120 or whatever it was last year again. And that will affect the whole division. It was easy for them to have, they have 2 or 3 teams out of the Central last year make the playoffs because they beat up on the White Sox every day. They'll be better. How do they turn it around? They've got some young prospects coming. But it's going to come down to eventually they have to sign some free agents. And you can't just say our farm system is going to be better than everybody else. And the disadvantage of today is now you have a draft lottery. You have more of a slotted draft. You can't sit there and say, I'll wait for this guy, I'll pay him more money, and we'll get him in the 5th round. That doesn't happen anymore. So it's a little harder to turn it around than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago when the Astros were able to turn it all around and get things going in Houston.
Harold, do you think one of those reasons, where Michael said it there, it's the best and then the rest. Do you think one of those reasons it really is, it goes back to the owners who are willing to spend? I mean, I feel like they've sort of broken the system again, that their Yankees are almost getting beat at their own game at this point by the Dodgers and by the Mets, obviously stealing Soto. Does that actually have this cachet that is it worse now than it ever has been before, do you think, between teams that are willing to spend and teams that aren't willing to?
Well, I think what is the challenge is the system has changed. You don't have young players signing long-term contracts when offered. You look at the Braves even 4 or 5 years ago, right? You get Albies signs a long-term deal. Acuna does. All these young players took $100 million, $30 million, $50 million. Now they're Vlad Jr. saying 500 is not enough. And so how the Blue Jays going to sign a guy like that comes out of your system. I think that's been more of an effect on how the sport is being played than necessarily ownership trying to spend big money on free agents. If you can't lock up guys that you've had in your system for 6 years before they're a free agent, then how are you going to be able to compete? And that was always something that the Guardians, who were the Indians back in the day, were able to do. They locked up all their young players, Alomar and Lofton and Tomey and all those guys, and they could make a run. Even the Yankees back in the day, they get the moniker for the evil empire, but you locked up Jeter, Posada, Rivera, guys that were in your minor league system to long-term deals. That doesn't happen today because players are not taking those long-term deals. And that's why the Braves are where they're at in the position they're in. And so I think that's been more of a problem than necessarily the owners not spending. Hard to say owners aren't spending when you got over $5 billion in salaries out in baseball. It's hard to say.
It's just the Dodgers and the Mets alone, honestly.
Well, I mean, Harold, we're talking big numbers here. We're talking big money, and I'm going to give you a number here: $6.1 billion. That's what the Celtics just went for, and they don't even own their own stadium. That's 16 times total revenue. That's the price. That's the ticket. Now, if you look at Major League Baseball, on average, teams in Major League Baseball are trading at 6.6 times revenue, significantly less than that, right? And it's actually the lowest of, the major sports, plus Major League Soccer, which trades at a 9.4x. So, what I need to know is just how much higher can the value of the New York Yankees at $8.4 billion or the Dodgers at $7.7 billion go? I mean, are we capped here now, finally? I mean, or is it really just anyone's guess? I mean, can these valuations continue to explode from here?
I think they can continue to explode because there's only 30 of them.
Right.
It's a rare gem. That's the uniqueness of it. And even the other sports, we're starting to see more soccer franchises are going to come along. You're going to see even football's expanding. Baseball eventually will probably expand as well. But right now you got 30 teams. So that is like a jewel.
Our thanks to Harold Reynolds for joining us. He's MLB Network's lead studio analyst and, of course, a 12-year MLB pro and 2-time AL All-Star. Up next, we turn to March Madness and all the businesses looking to make big money this year during the tournament. My colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with my colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo. March Madness is well underway, and our colleagues at Bloomberg Intelligence have been tracking how a lot of businesses are looking to earn big with all the interest in the games. The men's tournament alone could draw over $1 billion in ad money. To take a deep dive into who's looking to win big and how cord cutting is factoring in, we bring in Bloomberg Intelligence senior media analyst Geetha Ranganathan and Bloomberg Intelligence equities analyst Kevin Neer. Geetha, Kevin, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports. I'm going to start this one with Geetha, and this is about March Madness. Paramount. Yeah, Geetha, they seem to be enjoying March Madness so far, at least maybe ratings-wise.
Yes, they are. So, again, we come back to this point over and over again, Michael. So sports tends to be the most resilient genre on linear TV. If you just kind of look at it big picture, it makes up about 30% of all linear TV viewing. But what's even more important is that it makes up 45% of total ad sales. So really, really important for all of the media companies and definitely for Paramount as well, which along with Warner Brothers Discovery has the rights to the NCAA March Madness. And of course, majority of the games this time around, so it keeps alternating between CBS and the Turner networks. And of course, CBS this year will have the semis and the finals. And so they're going to have a big ad haul, as you just pointed out.
Yeah, but Geetha, aren't fees getting higher? I mean, isn't it getting more and more expensive to pay for these, for these slots, to pay for these sports, and to pay for these sponsorship rights, and then to make money off of them and sell those ads? I mean, talk to us a little bit about the margins.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point, Damian. So sports, yes, they are definitely very lucrative in terms of ad dollars, but at the same time, all of these media companies are dealing with rights fees escalating at astronomical rates, right? We've seen rights fees go up something like 30-40% in every renewal cycle. And actually, this is really timely because even for the NCAA men's March Madness tournament, we're actually seeing rights fees step up pretty significantly this year. So this is when, in 2025 is when the new extension goes into effect. And so we're seeing, both of these companies pay the NCAA about over or close to about $1 billion in rights fees. That's up from about $800 million.
Wow.
So yes, sports is an expensive proposition. And sometimes, in some cases, as you rightly mentioned, Damian, it is a loss leader. In this case, we actually think they're able to attract just about enough ad dollars to cover the rights fees. So hopefully it will not be a loss-making proposition. But you're absolutely right. This is a very, very tricky game because rights fees continue to keep going up in every renewal cycle.
It's interesting to me that it's going to be continued even this year. Obviously, you said they're going to have a big hole for the semifinals and for the rest of the tournament, even though this year is the first time that we don't really have any Cinderella stories going into the Sweet 16 and beyond. Really, there won't be as big of a draw. Is that not halting the idea that there's going to be a drop-off in viewership or anything like that for advertisers?
Yeah, so that's a great observation. So, Vanessa, ratings so far, despite the fact that there have been no dramatic upsets, ratings have actually been really strong. So in the early games, we've seen men's games averaging about 9.5 million viewers. That's actually the highest in about 30 years. Sports betting tends to be a key reason, but we are continuing to see really, really strong numbers across the board. I think it's up about 8 to 9% from last year. So I don't necessarily think we're anticipating a big drop off. And remember, most of these ad spots, they've already been committed to and spoken for. So that's all good money at this point.
Let's bring in Kevin Neer here. Kevin Neer, for our audience, is the senior associate analyst on Geetha's team, but he focuses on tickets. He focuses on StubHub, Live Nation, all that fun stuff. And, Kevin, I just got to ask you, where are ticket prices coming in this year? I mean, look, we've asked a lot of people on the show, where are we in the business cycle? Or, people willing to pay or households willing to pay these higher prices. I guess our question for you is, are they?
Yeah, they are so far. I mean, ticket prices have been at record levels. Coming out of the pandemic, we saw just incredible pent-up demand, explosive demand for live events. People wanted to get out of their house. They wanted to go see these must-see events. So ticket prices are already at record highs. And now looking out into this year, really the question is demand, right? I mean, on the supply side, if you look at the concert pipeline, you have a lot of stadium activity, which is great. On
Metallica, Coldplay, we've
Kendrick,
got all
there's tons of stuff on the concert side. So that's all good. And then on the sports side, obviously, again, it just really comes down to demand. I mean, you're seeing a big tailwind that the venues themselves are pushing deeper and deeper into VIP clubs, luxury boxes, really, really driving up those prices. I think, just recently the Florida Panthers raised their season ticket prices. Recently, the Buffalo Bills raised their season ticket prices. So it's all going up. But really, and especially on the resale market, what matters most is demand, right? So we're going to be taking a close look at consumer confidence and seeing how that trends this year.
Well, while Damian is crowd surfing at the concert, I remember, and take this from an old man here and help me understand what's happening today. When you wanted a ticket to go see the Detroit Tigers, you had to go to the ticket office at Michigan and Trumbull. Okay, I want these tickets, blah, 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 blah. And if you were really fancy, you buy the season tickets there, and that was it.
Right.
And then it all changed, man.
It all changed.
StubHub and everything going, secondary ticket markets. Explain that evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are in the internet age, of course. And right now, ticketing is just dominated by Ticketmaster, right? Especially the primary market or the original issuance market. A big part of that is these exclusive contracts that Ticketmaster has with some of the biggest venues, the stadiums, the arenas. That's really been locked up for the most part. On the secondary side, what we've been seeing is that StubHub has been taking a lot of share because they've just been spending so aggressively on marketing. So the past few years, we've seen their gross order volume really explode, which has been great for them. If you look outside of the U.S., though, you're absolutely right. Resale markets are predominantly offline. They are heavily regulated in a lot of markets. So StubHub will have an uphill climb under their Viagogo brand internationally. They'll have a very significant uphill climb internationally, but it's a big market. There's a lot of open field out there.
See, Vanessa, if I wanted tickets back in the old days at Tiger Stadium, I'd see Benny right outside, and he'd give me something for the second level. That's the way the secondary market used to work.
Right.
But you still have to stand outside. Sometimes you can go to Broadway. If you want to see Broadway play, you go in person to avoid fees, because that's the biggest problem with some of these platforms, right? It's the extra fees and everything that people seem not willing to pay. But it seems like, I guess, if the ticket market's going up, then I guess it's no problem. Must be fine.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Kevin, is before when we were talking about March Madness, ratings are going up even though with cord cutting, and we were talking about how you said it's saying that $1.1 billion will bring in just from the men's side of March Madness. What about the women's side? Because last year, the championship for the women outdrew the men by 4 million viewers. So what are we seeing on that side? And did we see more advertising, fever for the women's side this year?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of lagging going on with the women's side. You're seeing just this, unbelievable explosion in engagement across that side. Now, for the women's March Madness tournament this year, ratings are down a little bit against those just incredible, record numbers that you just mentioned. We'll have to see for the next few rounds kind of what happens on the TV rating side, just with Juju Watkins going down with the injury. But again, the women's sports side is a huge amount of upside, right? I mean, just look at what's happening in the WNBA, and yes, this is the Caitlin Clark effect, but we're seeing almost on the daily basis announcements of teams that are playing against the Indiana Fever. They're moving those games to bigger venues, right? They're moving those games to arena-sized venues because there's just so much interest in the women's side.
Well, Geetha, I'd love to bring you back in here because, and Kevin as well. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts because I know, you both live in a world where, it's quarter to quarter, but just how far ahead are you looking? Are you guys paying attention to the FIFA World Cup and the run-up to that? I mean, we're a little more than a year out here. And I for one, my wife just kind of pinged me down. She's like, listen, StubHub, we can get tickets for the champion at the Meadowlands. And so, is that real? Are we really seeing the beginnings of this FIFA World Cup, build-up?
Not yet. Okay. In fact, FIFA actually put out a warning saying, be very careful about speculative buying on any of these resale sites. They mentioned StubHub, they mentioned Vivid. So keep an eye out, Danny. You got to be careful.
I haven't bought anything yet, right?
Good.
Geetha told me not to buy. I'm not buying.
Those World Cup tickets, those World Cup tickets are going to be sold directly on FIFA's website. But yes, it's a huge opportunity for StubHub in 2026. There's a lot of upside, obviously big demand for an event like that. So a lot of those tickets will be hitting the resale markets eventually. And that's a big part of why we think they're launching this IPO now, even with these let's call them tumultuous market conditions. They want to get ahead of that big event. And then obviously even looking out even further, there's the Olympics in 28 as well.
And Geetha, by the way, look out for the fake sites and talk more about it. Don't buy from StubHub, okay?
Got it.
There is a problem, though. I mean, you got crooks is the best way I can describe it, that will try to cheat people of their money with a fake website or this or that, whatever, and you have to be careful out there.
Well, here's my other question, Michael Barr, and I just have to jump in here. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, we're still feeling the reverberations from that. We have Beyonce this. But I got to believe you guys, are expecting a year-over-year decrease in terms of a lot of, in terms of just top line, right? Because, wasn't Taylor Swift just such an incredible force of nature? Nothing can possibly compete, or am I wrong, Kevin?
Let's look at it in two different ways, right? On the primary side, Live Nation says, no tour is ever going to be more than 1% of their revenue, right? So that part aside, yes, StubHub absolutely caught some tailwinds from the resale pricing. You saw some just ludicrous prices on those tickets. But again, there's still healthy demand. There's a lot more concerts in stadiums this year, which means bigger venues, so more attendance, more seat capacity, and then higher average prices as well. So you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's really going to come down to ultimately where demand is shaking out.
Geetha, I want to talk about gross merchandise sales, and they did pretty strong, that $12.8 billion. Can you expand more into that?
Oh, absolutely. So, across the board, what we're seeing for all of these leagues is, media rights, of course, makes up a huge part of their revenue. But we also see a lot of revenue coming in from ticket sales, as you pointed out, and then from merchandise sales. And of course, everything kind of feeds into everything, right? This is this whole flywheel effect. So as we see the interest build for the sports, as we see kind of ratings go up, we see all these other ancillary streams also kind of really do well. And that's exactly where we're kind of seeing merchandise. And we're seeing that kind of across the board. We track merchandise sales even for some of the big companies, whether it's a Disney or, toy sales, things like that. And across the board, demand has been fairly strong.
Our thanks to Geetha Ranganathan and Kevin Neer of Bloomberg Intelligence for joining us. Up next, we take a look at some of the latest big money moves in sports and talk a little about private equity. For my colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower. We've got an old friend of the show joining us now. Xavier Gutierrez is chairman and CEO of ImpactX Sports Group. That's a private investment and strategic advisory firm with a focus on the global sports industry. He's here now to take us through some of the latest developments in sports investing, including the growth of private equity in sports. Xavier, welcome back to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you guys again. I always enjoy coming in.
Man, thank you. We love talking to you, and I'm just going to come out and say it. I have nothing against Utah. Yes, you guys got the Utah hockey team. God bless, blah, 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 blah. But I was really cool with, I know the guy who is with the Phoenix Coyotes, and I'm like, heck yeah. And then it didn't happen.
No, it didn't. It was very, very disappointing. So let me talk about Utah. Utah has been phenomenal. Right. I mean, if you look at the embrace of that community, of the fans, Ryan Smith is an amazing owner. Obviously, has done some incredible things with the Jazz, and now obviously with the hockey club. And absolutely a market that's going to be very successful for many, many years. Unfortunately, we had a plan. And the plan was to build a privately funded arena, entertainment district, and it was very disappointing. That is a hockey market, and I've said this from day one. It's the second largest Canadian snowbird market, and it's been, a hockey market for 30 plus years. And it will remain to be a hockey market, and hopefully the NHL will be back there in the future.
I thought, Scarlet, it was a done deal. I'm like, just like you see the blackjack dealers, and they slap their hands coming up next.
Yeah,
but
so close. Yeah. It was close. So, Javier, you make really good points about Arizona being a hockey market. Certainly, it's successful at the collegiate level. What will it take for pro hockey, to be viable in Arizona?
A facility. It stops and starts with a facility. I think that when the team first moved there from Winnipeg in 1996, if you recall, they actually played where the Suns currently played, and they had obstructed seats. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately they moved out to Glendale, Arizona, which is a very vibrant and growing market. It has this massive sports and entertainment center, but it wasn't the right location for a sport that you need to bring people in midweek. Obviously the Cardinals do quite well. It's one game a week. It's typically on the weekends. But for us, it was quite challenging. It was a little bit further away from sort of the core corporate center.
Yep.
And so ultimately, it really, really undermined the attendance for many, many years. And we tried to rectify that. We tried to bring, this vision of an entertainment district out in the East Valley, in Tempe first, and then in North Scottsdale, or North Phoenix, rather, next to Scottsdale. And it really is a facility.
have you given up on the dream of pro hockey in Arizona? If the NHL returns to Arizona, would you be a part of it?
I mean, obviously, you never say never. I do believe that the NHL will be back in Arizona. I believe that the fan base is there, the corporate base is there, the growth. It's the fifth largest, DMA in the country, and so you see all the momentum for sports there. You need a facility, and in talking with folks at the NHL, they'll tell you that you need to actually physically see it, or you need to see the land being owned, the approvals having already been granted, and the capital being assigned. And so I do believe that is a market that the NHL would love to be back in at some point in the future.
Javier was the first Latino CEO in NHL history, and you were one of the few real estate executives also in pro sports altogether. And that's like I'm saying, my man, all right, And now, but you know what? You have something that is kicking butt here at the of ImpactX Sports Group. And more importantly, let's just say it involves the Giants. And I'm not talking about the football Giants.
Yeah, well, we sold the team last year,
right,
and I took some time off. I traveled with my wife, Jerica, my son, Javi, who's now a junior in high school, until we went to visit schools. And then I started feeling a lot of phone calls from the private equity firms really targeting sports. Not only was I honored to be the first Latino CEO in the history of the NHL, I was one of the few real estate and private equity guys to run a team. And so as sports has become this institutional asset class, a lot of folks were interested in talking to me. And what I kind of realized was, you know what, I would love to take your money. But I actually have a slightly different take as to the opportunities that exist, and that is the core asset is the team or the league or the university, and they have things right in front of them that they have to deal with, whether that's media, facilities, players, or the sporting side. Then to the side of them are all of these amazing strategic ventures that if they had a capital partner and an operator that they would love to go and take advantage of, and it would be accretive to the value. So people think immediately real estate, but there's so much more. This is the most valuable intellectual property in the world, and there are so many other businesses that you can leverage this intellectual property, and that's what I'm looking to do. So on one hand, partner with these large private equity funds to be my capital partner. On the other hand, create joint ventures with teams and leagues and universities and say, how do we continue to explore leveraging new opportunities, strategic ventures?
So let's talk a little bit about private equity's roles in different teams. There was the news, of course, that Sixth Street Partners has bought a 10% stake in the San Francisco Giants, the MLB club. And of course, it's kind of the latest PE firm to enter pro sports. It already has stakes in a number of pro sports teams. But just beyond providing funding for some of those other opportunities that you talked about, how do you see private equity's role changing the operations of some of these clubs and how they think about their growth potential?
Well, I think this is a fantastic example of this. If you ask, Sixth Street, and they've made a public statement about this, and the Giants have as well, what are they using the money for? It's not simply just for the team. It's for these sort of extensions of the sports enterprise that is the San Francisco Giants. So there's the team, and then there's the enterprise, and that enterprise entails their massive real estate project that surrounds the stadium, Oracle Park, and so that is what I see the role of private equity is saying, what are these other components of the enterprise, of the holding company that we can go and take advantage of and we can invest in, and that there are no limitations, right? So there are limitations when you invest in a team in terms of the percentage of ownership, the structure, the debt. When you're looking at these opportunities for the holdco, not the teamco, a lot more flexibility, a lot more exit opportunities, a lot more structuring. And so I believe that private equity is looking at that opportunity and that valuation increase. And I think we're barely at the first inning of looking at that as an investment opportunity.
I used to say that in order of how does an owner make money when he or she sells the team, now with private equity, they can make some coin, because let's think about it. Maybe there were some folks out there way back, that bought a team for $34 in a six-pack. And now this team is like in the billions. Yes. So you could just put up, like you said, like 10%, and man, you made your money back.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, the valuation increases are based on so many things, right? You have certain contracted and growing revenue for the teams, whether it's media rights, whether it's sponsorships, which are multi-year. Even there's been studies done that, the renewal rates for season ticket members are fairly consistent. Yeah. All right. And so you have this revenue stream. But the other opportunity is very simple. Take the team and look at everything else around it. I've said from day one, these teams are health and wellness businesses, they're technology businesses, they're consumer businesses, they're real estate businesses.
That's a lot of different industries.
100%. And so when you think of the valuation, because I get asked all the time, are we at peak valuations? I said, well, number one, most teams haven't tapped into their international markets. Mm-hmm. Number two, they haven't tapped into these enterprises that are extensions of the core asset. And plenty of people have talked about, I know George Pine at Brewing Capital, had an extensive, conversation very early on about these are enterprises, not teams. And what you're seeing now is the investment thesis really pursuing that.
Playing itself out. Absolutely. Talk a little bit about your role as a Latino owner of a major sports team, and with your movement to ImpactX Sports Group and your efforts to get private equity and think through building at the enterprise value. We're in a very different cultural moment right now. The Trump administration has been very vocal, opposing anything DEI related. I'm wondering how that changes how you market what you're doing.
I don't think it changes at all. I think one of the areas that you see an emphasis on leaning into the growth cohorts, which are young, female, diverse, tech-savvy, and purpose-driven, is actually in sports. This is a business imperative. These are consumer businesses. So what does the consumer look like in America? Where is it growing when you think of where these professional sports teams are? So I've been asked a lot about, the backlash against DEI. I said, this isn't a DEI sort of... This
is not a feel-good thing.
This is not a feel-good thing. This is a business imperative. Mm-hmm. When you think of what the Giants and where they're located, right, and who they're targeting as ticket goers, as social media followers, as people buying merchandise, it's a very diverse community. They're leaning into that. I haven't heard a single team or league saying, "Oh, we're backing away from where the growth is coming." In
fact, they're recognizing their market.
They're absolutely recognizing their market, and they're trying to be creative and innovative in terms of how do we capture them, being where they're at and being in unexpected places. So you're seeing collaborations across fashion brands that you've never seen before. The omnipresence of sports across multiple industries is a very concerted effort to go after this growth cohort. So for me, when people talk to me about, what's your reaction to this backslash? I go, I'm here to, pursue a business imperative, right, of capturing growth, and this is where I'm going after it.
Our thanks to ImpactX Sports Group Chairman and CEO Xavier Gutierrez for joining us. And thank you for joining us. For my colleagues Scarlet Fu, Damian Sassower, and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. And don't forget to catch our podcast on all your podcast platforms. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.